Get the meeting started.
Okay, thank you. Did we receive any notifications or requests for virtual meeting participation from any members of the board?
Yes, Chair, we did, or actually Director did. We did. Carla Brown notified staff that she has a need to participate remotely for Just Cause under AB 2449 and the Brown Act.
Okay, thank you. There are a few legal requirements for participating remotely for Just Cause. We've prepared 3 questions to address these requirements that we ask that you answer directly, Director Brown. Let's see. Generally describe the circumstances relating to your need to participate remotely. The request does not need to disclose medical or personal information, but must be for Just Cause to provide childcare, or for a contagious illness, or for physical or mental disability, or for official business travel for a public agency.
I have a contagious illness.
Okay, thank you. Please confirm that you will have audio and video during the meeting.
I will have audio and video throughout the meeting.
And lastly, please disclose if there are any individuals over the age of 18 present in the room, and if so, the general nature of the relationship with you.
There is no one in the room over 18.
Okay, thank you. So we will take a roll call vote then to allow Director Brown to continue with us remotely.
Okay, Director Branning.
Yes.
Director Josie.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, perfect. That's all we need to do on this, I think. Perfect. So we will then, do we need a full roll call then of the participants in the meeting in addition to that?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Director Branning,
Here.
Director Josie,
And I'm here.
and Chair Howard is absent.
Okay, perfect. So we are gonna go ahead and do our Pledge of Allegiance slightly out of order. I'll try not to trip while we do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go on to our public comment portion. Meeting is open to the public. Any members of the audience who wish to address the committee on matters that are within the general subject matter jurisdiction of our board of directors are free to do so. At this time, do we have any members of the public that would like to address us?
So I did not have anybody here in the public that gave me any comment slips. Nobody emailed me with comments, and there's nobody remote right now as an attendee.
Okay, we do have, I believe a member of the public. Yes?
He's our
intern. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, just making sure that we don't have anybody who wanted to speak. Okay. So we will move on then to the consent calendar. We don't really have a consent calendar. We have minutes. I don't see it listed as consent calendar. Make sure I'm looking at the.
No, you're right. It's just minutes.
That's just minutes. Okay. And that's fine. We don't need a motion for those. So I'm gonna move on to the Dial-A-Ride customer survey.
Or
Do
you
we
think
want
you need a motion, yeah.
to approve? Okay, we need a motion to approve the minutes unless anybody has a question.
I'll move the minutes.
I'll second.
Because we have an online participant, we do need a roll call for all of our motions. So if we could have the roll call, please.
Sure. Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Director Branning,
Aye.
Director Josie.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And okay, now Dial-A-Ride customer satisfaction.
So we're gonna have Audrey Home, our paratransit planner, present this item.
Good afternoon. We have a small presentation. Jennifer is going to pull it up. And as you know, we have been conducting annual paratransit customer surveys quite some time. So this time around, the surveys were conducting in January and February this year.
Oh, trying to pull it. There we go.
There we go.
Here we go. So January, February this year. This time around, 272 surveys tools were collected and they averaged around 18 minutes. 229 of them were conducted over the phone and 43 people completed online survey. 4 people completed the survey in Spanish. QMR, which is our survey company, want to market research, used variety of methods. Which included sending postcards, emails, texts, and calling people. The margin of error is just over ±5% at the 95% confidence level. And there was also a raffle of 4 prizes of $50 offered to all respondents. Now, next slide, please. So the total of 18 questions were asked about different aspects of the real salary service, and people rated those questions in a 1 to 5 point scale. What is interesting to see is actually 16 out of the 18 questions received above 4 rating, which is the best compared to the last 4 times this survey was conducted. For example, last year, it was 8 out of 17 questions were above 4. And the year before, 14 out of 17. Now the blue boxes, they indicate those service aspects that got a little bit better rating than the last time. And those include overall a high level of satisfaction with ride experience and drop-off experience, no problems with phone menu, and driver offered me help during the drop-off. The service aspects that got the lesser rating this time was that person on the phone was knowledgeable and driver being on time. I'm going to add here that, go back, please. Yeah, I was just going to add a little side note that this is customer perception of the service. So we compare, we have KPIs and where we actually collect data on OTP and so on. So for example, OTP this current fiscal year has been really good. It's been 97.75%, while we require only 95%. It's really good compared to last year, which actually got the higher rating according to the survey respondents, but last year our OTP was only 89.62%. Interesting. So I'm just adding that. So now we can go to the next slide.
Could you go back one slide?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, it's also interesting, the overall experience, the very first line declined, but nearly every other category saw an increase.
And relatively significant increases as well.
Yeah.
With the exception of the on-time piece.
Yeah.
Which the data doesn't,
It doesn't
true
align.
on-time, yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it is really interesting, people's perception of what happens and then what actually.
I wonder if it's the person on the phone being knowledgeable is degrading their perception of the whole service.
And it could be, and we know hold times are longer than they have been in the past, and it's something we've been working with County Connection, but.
Did we get any like anecdotal evidence on why? Because overall experience also is lower than people rated everything else, and it just feels.
I know.
I mean, other than one time, and it seems odd if someone's like 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, but 3.
Yeah. That,
Doesn't make,
It doesn't make
it doesn't make sense, yeah, so it's, if we left this out and just like the average of all others four, we would get a different average.
interesting, okay.
Anyway, the next slide, please. So this time we actually also asked some new questions. One of them was that if a person is a wheelchair or scooter user, do they feel like that they're safely secured? And it turns out that 1/3 of the older respondents were actually wheelchair or scooter users. And they rated their safe securement as high as 4.5%. And this actually is a very high percentage, the highest percentage, the highest point average given to any other question this year and all those other 4 years that I had on the previous slide.
And we asked this specifically because we have been hearing complaints from our staff members of wheelchair tie-down issues, so I was really pleased to see the high. Most people feel that they are being securely tied down.
So it looks like one or two people are not feeling that way
Yes.
or complaining
Yeah.
frequently.
Probably, that is the case. And we probably know who they are.
Yes.
Slide. So we actually also asked about other features and programs this time, not just real salary. The other features and programs that are available for real salary users. One of them is the My Transit app, and that's the app where people can kind of check the ride status, they can cancel their rides, they can also book their new rides. Interestingly, we found that, so we asked like, have you used it and how familiar you are with it? 20% of the people said that they have used it. 14% said they have heard about it, but they have not used. And 64% said that they have not heard about it.
That's,
That's how it's
Opportunity,
better,
yeah,
yeah.
that's an opportunity, an opportunity.
that's a surprisingly large number, but.
Yeah.
It's a.
And we've done mailers, I mean, I think we sent out a postcard
We
or.
did a mailer last summer. And everybody who becomes a new rider, they get a packet, there's information about all the services, including, yeah, they're welcome.
But it does speak to the demographic potentially, or, you know, who we are carrying on this. Seniors and persons with disabilities may not feel comfortable using, a smart.
Next slide. Next one is a parataxi, same question was asked. So, parataxi has been around for over 15 years. And 13% of the people said they have used it, 22% said they have used it, they've heard about it but have not used. And 60% said they don't know anything about it. Always interesting opportunity here again. And the last one, familiarity with One Seat Ride program. So this program is led by County Connection, and LAVTA is participating along with LAVTA and LAVTA. And this is where people can use One Seat Ride within the service areas of all those 4 participating agencies. And 6% have used it. 10% have heard about it, but not used. 78% don't know anything about the service.
So that's an accurate, and
Yeah.
this feels like a group that would overlap with using these programs.
Yeah.
Should be pretty high, so, yeah.
We're definitely taking,
So opportunity to advertise and market the services.
and this one seat ride won't work for everyone in our service area. If you don't have medical appointments or business in Contra Costa, it doesn't work. When we can expand into East Bay paratransit territory, I think that will be a meaningful impact for our riders.
And people actually are using those services, and like this fiscal year, ridership is much higher than previous years, and a lot more people are using the One Seat Ride than they did, and the same service was offered as a connecting ride. Transfer.
Yeah. Thank you, Carla. With just the 3 of us, feel free to just jump in when you have a question. Thank you.
Oh, I don't want to talk over anyone, so I did have a couple questions, if you don't mind. My first question, and it's somewhat rhetorical, but what are we going to do with this data? So you've got a lot of good data, many of the questions I heard in discussion, but what are we going to do about it? Surveys are wonderful to pat ourselves on the back, and this are good results. But until we got into the information about the apps, 64% not heard about the apps. Help me, staff. Is this how they can make a reservation without going through the phone to use the
Yes,
app?
yes, that is exactly it.
There's a caveat though, so to make a reservation to the app is a trip they've already had to have scheduled, but once they've scheduled it, they can book through the app. We are working on changing that, but for now, that's how it works. They also can call in, or actually use the app to get real-time arrival information for their vehicle. And so a lot of these folks are calling in, which could of course impact the hold times, et cetera. So that is one reason we kind of want to push folks to the app, is empowering them to get that information so that they don't have to call in.
What's the difference between scheduling and booking? If you have to schedule it first and then you can book it through the app? I don't understand. what-
You have to have previously taken that trip.
Ah,
Yeah,
it's,
it could be a historic trip you've already taken.
Yeah.
okay, so it can't be a new destination.
Correct.
Okay,
So there's some nuances that
Okay.
it's not a perfectly great
Okay.
customer experience.
so I can buy it again, but I can't buy it for the first time.
The first time you have to call in and then
Okay.
schedule it, so there's that limitation, but once you do book the trip, then you can go through the app and book it again, and then a lot of those are standing trips where people can use the app for that,
Mhm.
so.
Okay,
I'll just throw out some ideas to consider, because it sounds like the app will make, it will reduce our costs and make it more streamlined. Is there some way to give a drawing, a benefit, download the app and get $2 off your next ride? Some incentive so that people will download the app and people will use the app. I think clearing it up when you can and when you can't is probably confusing for some. So even if it's confusing for the board, that's something to take on. But I'd like to see 100%, I know that's a big number, know at least about the transit app. I'd like to see close to 100 know about the one seat ride, even if they don't use it, because that was a question. And I'd like to see close to 100 know what parataxi is, but I think you're using a phrase or a word that people aren't familiar with. I know it is dial-a-ride, and parataxi is a new term. So going back, I know I'm throwing a few things out because I have my time on the floor, but could parataxi be a term, Cadre, that people are not familiar with and they're familiar with other terms for that dial-a-ride pickup?
I think it's been called parataxi since the inception, and that's how we've been marketing parataxi. But also we did add another element to parataxi a few years ago, text cards. So some people may confuse, like text card is one thing, parataxi is another thing, but text card is just one payment method
But
for
we've been
parataxi.
calling it, at least on the board, I'll say, we've been calling it paratransit.
There's two programs. I'm sorry to interrupt, Director Brown. There's paratransit, which is dial-a-ride, which is your ADA mandated service. And then we have this parataxi. Maybe we could come up with a different word and branding for it. But that is really, it's above and beyond your paratransit. It is almost like same day paratransit. So basically eligible paratransit customers can receive 85% of the cost of a taxi trip. Up to $20 for trips taken within the Tri-Valley. So it's an additional service that we offer. And as Cadre said, it's been around for 15 years. But I do think, I mean, we are trying to pursue rebranding, if you will, our mobility access programs, because we have one seat ride, we have parataxi, we have wheels paratransit, and we need some type of an umbrella brand. And so Mike Tobin had brought that up a couple months ago, and we're figuring that out for next year.
And that's one of the reasons we included these slides, is we do see an opportunity just to improve our education, our outreach, and how we kind of educate folks on these different services. And so as Chrissy mentioned, by pulling this all under the umbrella of, I'm throwing out wheels access, but we'll see where we land with that. But it's all just different services under that brand. And so we're hoping this will help streamline and help people understand these services better.
Well, as we look at our long range transit report, I wonder, is there enough overlap that we don't need one or the other? I mean, parataxi, if it's very rarely used by those that would normally use our special needs transit, do we need this? And it sounds very expensive for our program. This is an honest question. As we look for keeping our expenses reasonable, do we need parataxi? And if that few of people even know about it, and very few are even using it, is it a critical is it a critical program? And then lastly, if people who found out about it would switch from dial-a-ride paratransit and go to parataxi, could they do that? And would it drive your costs up tremendously? Those are my questions.
I want to take an initial stab at it, if that's okay, but so parataxi, the idea of this program is actually to reduce overall operating costs for dial-a-ride, because they're actually much cheaper than operating a traditional dial-a-ride trip. So basically, the idea is if someone is ambulatory and they don't need, this wheelchair accessible vehicle, you don't need to schedule a trip a day, 24 hours in advance, then they can just get an Uber trip the same day and then, submit a voucher for reimbursement. And then it keeps overall costs down. And then the benefit to the customers, they're able to just easily schedule a same day trip. And it seems like a lot of people aren't aware of it, but we do have some high usage and it's a very popular program. But I think we can do a better, a job of kind of educating folks on it.
And if I can just add on to that, we do receive grant funding for parataxi through Alameda CTC, and that's something, it'll be in your executive director's report for next week, but we are receiving, or we are poised to receive even more funding for parataxi. But I think you raise a great question, Director Brown. And I think as we explore microtransit, we've got Go Tri-Valley, and we have parataxi, there are multiple services that are overlapping that are potentially trying to capture the same rider. So I think I am completely open to evaluating any and all of these services, because what we don't want to do is compete with ourselves for riders.
Right. You have so many programs you're trying to run, and then you don't become the most efficient at either one. Figure out which one is similar and that you can provide at a lower cost, and then invest in that program, market that program, and then bring ridership into that program. But it has to be a program that you're willing to sustain more than a year or two. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see the parataxi piece rolled into the Go Tri-Valley piece as part of the same, somehow we, however we're doing it.
Yeah.
As we, not immediately with Uber and Lyft necessarily, but whatever we do 6 months after we, when we do our evaluation.
Yes.
What are we, how are we rolling all that together? The other thing I wanted to say is with the app, if you have to book that ride, if you have to have taken that route once, it seems to me that, and this is gonna be a duh, I'm sure you guys are already doing it or already planning it, but, when a driver has taken somebody on that route, at the end of that ride, hey, let me show you this app, so the next time you don't have to call somebody. That to me is the perfect way to educate this particular population. It means a little extra work for the drivers, but probably only once or twice. Have you seen the app? Let me show you how to use it. Do you have a smartphone? Here, let me show you how to use it. So the next time you wanna take this ride, you just have to book it in this app. Let me show you how to download it right now, and we can do that. Probably taking them on the way home, not on the way to the route, because, we don't wanna make them wait for an appointment. But that way we can, it can be one-on-one coaching. We can just let the drivers know it'll take them a little extra time when they take somebody home. But that way they'll see, look, this is how you schedule this next time you wanna come to this appointment, a week from now, a month from now, whatever it is. That seems to be the best way to me to do that outreach, is so the drivers do it right then and there. And actually show them how to do it. Might mean we bring all the paratransit drivers in for training on how to teach the app. But it's 100% overlap with the right audience and how to, capture those folks. And just reading it on a flyer, that's not the best way to train this particular audience. So that might be the best way to do the app part.
And I'll add on kind of both of the concerns. One thing that I would like to look at, and this is longer term, this might be going too far astray, but getting people on the app, I think is partly user interface. It's partly also the talk about different programs and different costs. If we can really actually get app using up to a point and have it cover multiple programs to a point where really all a person has to do is think, I need to go from here to there.
Right.
And the app is smart enough to then say what's cheapest for us as far as cost goes and most efficient for them.
Right,
And
this is the
says,
ride for you.
yeah, okay, this one, we're gonna do dial ride, this one's para, this one, the best option is for you to call it Uber and we'll give you back $5. The app actually figures it out.
A little AI into the app.
Yeah.
And why on earth do they have to have scheduled the ride once first before they take that ride, right?
I would
So
say that.
This wasn't on our.
I understand, that was a rhetorical question, it wasn't a complaint, it was why was the app,
Yeah, why
I
was it
know we bought the app, we didn't.
We actually, it is County Connections app. So we, and they are our paratransit providers, so
Right.
we are beneficiaries of their app.
Right, so, you know,
Yes.
And
whoever wrote it, it was a limitation of their ability at the time, I'm sure, and, you know, the ability of the parameters that were given to them for
Mhm,
writing the app, but in a perfect world, that shouldn't be a limitation.
And the more it integrates for, you know, whole lifetime of using transit, would be, you know, so, you know, I could use the app for everything as well as someone who's on paratransit, like that would be,
Mhm.
I think that would be the ideal, and it'll take some investment
Yeah.
to get there, but
Right,
Yeah, interesting idea.
right, single app, doesn't matter what kind of rider you are.
yeah,
This is, they call that kind of a mobility as a service.
Mhm.
app. It's-
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
Exactly.
they exist, they're just.
It's harder than you think, I know.
yeah, yes,
We figured it out somewhat for fixed route, because Uber will do that when they were being, or, you know, Lyft and
right.
looking at what's faster, you can sort by quickest, cheapest, you know, low, least walking distance, but paratransit is interesting. That's interesting.
Okay, did we cut you off from the rest of your presentation, or were we on the right
that was
side?
the last slide,
Okay.
so, no.
The only thing we want to add is that we are recommending, this isn't an action, but, we don't see many changes in the trends year over year. And so we are going to recommend we do this survey once every 2 years, similar to your fixed route survey.
On off years from the fixed route service?
We can do
or
that.
at- or at
We
the
were
same
planning on
time?
doing it the same. So it would be, your next one wouldn't be until 2026.
Okay,
And we'll have a market research firm on board by then to do,
and doing it at the same time doesn't give staff heartburn?
it wouldn't be, I mean, we could do paratransit in the beginning of the year, we fixed route, in May.
Just as a side note, every time we do surveys, I don't want to speak for you as well, but I'm a data geek.
Yes.
Attaching it to the actual staff report so that we
Okay.
can have questions ahead of time, we might be able to, you know, delve a little bit deeper into the actual data. If we have it in front of us to
Okay.
read it before the meeting, instead of just seeing it on slides, would be super helpful.
Absolutely.
I figured I'd get another head nod across the table there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, anything else on this item? Do we have any public comment? We still don't have any members of the public.
No, there's no attendees
Okay,
in the meeting right now.
okay, if that should change, let me know, otherwise I will keep asking for public comment on each item.
Before we take this item, I'm sorry, Chair, we were planning on putting this on consent for the board meeting, on Monday, do you think that's appropriate, or do you think the board would benefit from a presentation?
I think it's, if the data is in the packet.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to be on consent, would be my
Okay.
opinion, and then if somebody wants to pull it because they've seen the data and they have questions, then they
Okay.
are free to do so.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think it's on consent, as it was written in this packet, it would need to be a presentation,
Mhm.
but if we include the data.
Okay.
Then I think it would be fine. Does anybody have a different opinion?
Sounds good.
I'd like to make a motion to move this report to the full board with the caveat that it would be performed every every even year, every other year, if you want to call it that. And then it includes the data as noted earlier by the chair. Because it's listed as just a information only, and so it really should be a motion if we're going to move it from subcommittee to, at least that's what it's traditionally done.
Yeah, that,
I'll second to cover it,
okay,
just in
yeah, that's
case.
good,
Sure.
thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, Vice Chair Brown,
Yes, yes.
Director Bonnet.
Yeah.
Running Director Josie.
Aye, and so,
Motion passes.
perfect.
Okay.
You have the wording of the motion down. I'm
Yes,
sorry, I
every
didn't-
other
I didn't
year and
read it.
including the data yes, and we're recording this. Thank you, Director Brown.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, now moving on to item 7, which is the Emerald High School service.
Oh, we're on
Again,
6, I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry, I did skip number 6, the Alameda County Fair Service.
Hopefully this one is smooth and quick. This is an action item. We are requesting the committee forward a recommendation to the board to operate your Route 52 shuttle to this year's fair. The details of the fair's operating hours and operating days are included in your packet. We enjoyed about 2,000 trips last year on our Route 52, which went from the East Dublin BART station to the Alameda County Fairgrounds. We would like to replicate that same schedule, roughly hourly service. And we are working with the fair, to see if we can get any promotions for, riders. So they might receive a discounted, coupon for admission to the fair. We're also working on getting the Madden bus, secured, to be on display at the fair, and also seeing if they can promote wheels on their marquee sign. This has been included in your FY '24 budget. And, if approved, we will, take this to the board for, approval on Monday, and then, begin to work on the scheduling. And I'm happy to take any questions.
No questions?
Yeah, Carla. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. In the past, there was an agreement with the fairgrounds, maybe Christy, you can help me with, or anyone else, that bus tickets were provided when they bought a ticket for the fair. There was an agreement between the two organizations. Do you recall what that was?
I do, and it has changed over the years. So it was, you would get a 2-for-1. If you rode wheels, you were given a voucher to get 2 fair admissions for the price of 1. And I will look to Tamara for any historical information that I might get incorrect or just might not know. Last year, it was, I think they gave us a 20% off coupon if you were to ride the bus. So it is, they've decreased their generosity with, offering discounted admission to bus riders. But it is still on our to-do list to confirm with the executive director of the fair. We started our conversations with them about 2 weeks ago, primarily around this service and the Madden bus, but it's high on my list.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's what I had.
And quick question for me, we're going from the East Dublin BART station,
Yes.
not the West Dublin BART station. The vast majority of Alameda County would be coming from the west.
There's just more options at the East Dublin Bar Station. Cyrus is our service planner. I would hate to call him up on the spot, but I will if we need to. But I think just from the routing perspective, the East Dublin is just, it's.
But there is also, I read in the staff report, a way for people to get from the West Dublin BART station to the Valley side,
Yeah.
Valley Drive side, if they chose to do that.
Yep,
On the
absolutely.
bus, it just wouldn't be the dedicated shuttle.
Right. And we have, Route 8 and Route 10 both get close to the fairgrounds.
Okay, also, this is listed as a, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm reading number 7. So we do need a, motion, please, to forward the recommendation.
I'll move.
Okay,
Second,
thank you. So the motion is to forward this recommendation to the board. We have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Brown,
yes.
Dr. Branning,
Aye.
Dr. Josie. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 7, Emerald High School. Sorry. Been trying to get to this.
So
for
excited.
a bit. I know, I just keep trying to jump forward.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. So we are also excited to unveil our newly planned service to Emerald High School. So this has been a long time in the making, so we are pretty excited about this. So we do have some slides, and I'm gonna ask if I can borrow the mouse, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I have a lot of little clicks I can do.
Getting up and running.
Okay. So by way of background, so Emerald High School will be opening its doors to students in August of this year for the 2024-2025 school year. Essentially, here is a map of the district boundaries. And then I have some stars here denoting our schools, Emerald and then Dublin. So the way it's gonna work with is this accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't wanna
Yeah, that's great.
surprise anyone here,
Nope.
but the way it's gonna work, at least for the first school year, is all freshmen and sophomore students who reside east of Hacienda will be attending Emerald, and then all other students will be attending Dublin High School in the first year.
With the caveat that inter-district transfers are being honored.
Route 30.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And it is important to note that we do have the Route 30 here on Dublin Boulevard every 20 minutes that goes right past Emerald High, and that'll become important in a little bit. So I'm just gonna give a brief overview of our assumptions that we had kind of as we were developing the service. And then I'm gonna hand it over to Cyrus, our senior transit planner, to actually discuss the service itself and the routing configuration. So assumption number 1, as I mentioned, it will only be freshmen and sophomore in attendance the first year. Obviously, this will ramp up. But for the first year, this is important because it then gives us a baseline for demand. So we're thinking that with 2 classes, we'll have around 1,000 students who will be taking the bus to Emerald High in, next year.
1,000 students will be going to Emerald High.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Sorry. 1,000 students will be going to the Emerald High this upcoming year. We'll also see a corresponding decrease in enrollment at Dublin High, so essentially seeing a shift of students from Dublin High to Emerald. However, we are assuming that less students overall will be riding the bus to Emerald, and this is for a number of reasons. The first being that students will just live closer to Emerald, and therefore they will be more inclined to take different active transportation modes, whether that be walking to school, riding the bike, or taking a scooter or something. Or maybe their parents are just, they'll be more willing to drop them off for whatever reason. And also, as I mentioned, we have the Route 30R, the Rapid 30R, which drives right by Emerald High every 30 minutes, so students could also use that as well. And not take a school bus. So yes, I want to take that back. So we are expecting a lower modal share of students riding the bus at Emerald. And so we're assuming it's going to be approximately 8% in the afternoon. And so this is almost half of what we currently see at Dublin High. So 8% of 1,000 students, that's 80 students in the afternoon. And then from an operational perspective, again, as you all know, we're tapped out when it comes to resources, both for our vehicles as well as our operators. So going into developing this service, we wanted to make sure we were resource neutral. So essentially shifting resources from Dublin on a 1-for-1 basis to Emerald High. Now I'm going to hand it over to Cyrus.
Thank you, good afternoon. So with that as a background, based on the anticipated startup enrollment at Emerald High School, against these assumptions, the estimated demand will be approximately 40 students in the AM and 80 students in the PM, from the new school, from the get-go. So for capacity planning purposes, this means basically 1 bus in the morning, and we need 2 buses in the afternoon. And those would need to be reallocated from capacity on the current cross-bound, VHS-bound 5 series routes. However, no existing route would be discontinued, rather we would allocate capacity from existing buses that go to. So in terms of routing of the new service, so we are so looking at the street network in this area, we're relatively limited with arterial facilities. We basically have Dublin Boulevard, the Sahara Road, and Fallon Road, the main thoroughfares that we have to work with. And those largely will be framing what we can operate in this area to serve if we were to do dedicated routes to the new school. And we've already talked about the existing Route 30R on Dublin Boulevard, so that we think that would take care of the neighborhoods to the east and west of the school. There's plenty of capacity there. It's frequent route runs every 20 minutes in each direction. So what we need to take care of is demand going from neighborhoods that are to the north of the school. So with that in mind, we are recommending a new EHS route that in the morning would start Positano Hill, follow Fallon Road and the Sahara Road in a counterclockwise direction. You can see from the arrows, the map. Then we would duck into Dublin Ranch Road, and then the route would end in front of the school on eastbound Central Parkway. Then for the afternoon, the route will pick up at the same location on eastbound Central Parkway, travel to Positano Hill, and then complete the Fallon Road and Sahara Road loop in the same counterclockwise direction. Yeah, thank you. As in the morning, including Dublin Ranch Road. And yes, so we have a proposed routing on your screen as well as in attachment.
Can I ask a quick question? Where you can see it says Farina Drive there, there's a lot of kids that live up, in those streets above that Positano Street. And that's quite a long walk down. Is there a reason we can't, go, say, up Brandini and down Terracina, or, just to move into that neighborhood and back out again? Those streets do go, it's easy to go up one and down the other to get back to Positano. Would it be possible to look into that?
I think we can look into it, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know the street name, I see.
Yeah, so the
Farina.
so right above where that dot is, you can kind of see that there's, it kind of goes up and around again.
Okay.
It's easy to get in and then back out again without, those streets are relatively wide as residential streets go.
Do you think there are bus stop locations that are suitable?
As suitable as Southwood Drive, I mean, to pull over the curb. I think it's worth looking at. That's a long walk for kids. Up that.
And they do
it's
it.
Uphill. Yeah, I know, but
yeah.
I'd love
We
to
can
see
look
us
at that,
go into the.
And I believe the next subtopic here is implementation and next steps.
Okay, so next step. So according to our public hearing for Title VI policy, this is a new service that we'd be introducing, so it does necessitate some kind of public hearing unless it is a pilot, if I'm understanding that correctly. So we're gonna be operating this essentially as a pilot for the first half of the school year. And that's for a number of reasons. First, these are all assumptions, and so we won't really know until actually a month after school starts, because we have the tri-transit program. And, we see more students riding the bus, and those ridership levels don't really stabilize until the program ends. So at that point, early September, maybe we'll have a better idea of what the demand actually looks like. At which point we will then reassess the demand and reassess this service, and then have something more permanent put in place, and that would then be a public hearing in the winter of next year. So we'll come back to the board, have a public hearing, and then it will be approved, and then it will be essentially set in stone. And then, of course, leading up to the actual start of school in August, we'll be continuing to meet with the leadership team from Emerald High. And of course, doing a sort of a robust public outreach campaign to all the incoming students. I think that's all we have. Am I missing anything, Christy? Just wanted to.
No, I think the big change is that we are not going to pursue the public hearing early. We're going to call this a pilot so we can figure it out. And then once we're comfortable, then we'll take it through the formal approval process. But no, I think great job by staff. I'm pleased. And I hope we get it right with our ridership assumption.
Yeah, we'll see. Director Brown, you have questions?
Make sure I got my microphone off. Yes, thank you. I just have a question. If you wouldn't mind going back to the map that Chair Josie asked a question about going up Positano. If I understand, is that at the northmost tip there?
I think it's right
No,
here, right? Is this?
Yeah, go over, keep going, kind of go in the middle, no,
Over
go back, right there.
Yep.
You can go up that street right there,
Oh,
And down.
and then keep going up. Yep, you could go up, keep going
Oh,
all the way up. Yeah, you can go to there, come down, and come right back down again. Or even, either one of those two. It's easy to go up into there and come right back
We will
out.
miss that stuff.
oh, over where Farino is. Okay, so my only comment about that is, will it affect the time? Because you have a long route for the bus to go. So it's just a question. I'm not saying it's not a great idea, but it's a long route for the bus to go. So if you add another, I don't know, 5 minutes in the loop, will this extensive loop run almost too long to be timely for both pickup and drop off? That's just my question.
Well, essentially, I don't think it would take up too much time to do. That's just a few blocks as far as I can tell. And I think since we're just draining existing capacity from Dublin, so it'd just be like starting another route that much earlier.
Yeah,
So-
just means kids will have to get on the bus a little earlier.
Exactly. So I don't think it'd be that too much of a challenge.
Okay, good. Okay, all right, thank you.
Definitely look at it, and if we can, we have to have site bus stops have to get approved through the Dublin City Council. And because the bus hasn't gone on these streets, we may be required to send out notices. Usually in my experience, people are okay with school trippers on their streets, not necessarily big fixed route buses, so that, we'll talk internally and we'll see what it would take. We'll first go
Yeah,
out
you
there.
would wanna go send somebody out there. And
Yeah, we have to go out there
see what
first,
the
yeah.
situation is, but you could literally go up to the end and then cut back over and come right back down
Yeah.
at the very end of that same street you went up. But it's quite wide.
Do you think that would affect expectations for Dublin High School service?
Yes,
And that one is those routes are particularly long.
yeah,
So let's,
yeah.
And what about Gleason Drive?
Those kids will only be going to Dublin High for 2 years.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
most of them are.
They're
they're all
juniors and
juniors
seniors.
So,
So they
it
won't be
might
there.
be something to look into
Mhm,
2 years from now.
mhm.
Yeah,
Love it.
I'll just comment, as the person calling in remote, when you're both talking, it's hard to understand. Gleason Drive, is that a populated area that's also going to be going to the new school?
I think it's just so close to the school that any students would just walk. I'm assuming.
well, the north side of Gleason Drive is the courthouse, the jail, the SPCA. There's nobody living, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nobody living on the north side of Gleason Drive.
Okay,
I
but
think-
when it says the word end, so Gleason Drive and end, does that mean that whole group is just expected to walk? I assume end is where the school is. And so you see where Gleason Drive is just to the right of that? Is that whole populated area, then they're expected to walk? Am I correct?
This is the afternoon map, Director Brown. Here's the morning map. So the morning map, it starts where it says starts, it goes up Positano, comes back, and you see that, if you have the mouse, can you hover the stop on Gleason? So there's a stop on Gleason, or right by, Tasahara and Gleason. We're getting the mouse oriented. So we did pick up kids there. So they basically are the last stop before we get to school, and they are the last stop at the end of school. So they have a very short trip going to school, and they have a longer trip getting home from school. So yes, they will be served.
But you see where the word Gleason Drive is, they're expected to walk. I guess that's, okay. Or they can catch the route. Okay. All right, thank you.
Questions?
Any questions, Dr. Brennan?
I'll let you go first, since this is your area of expertise.
I think I've gotten my comments out of the way. I think it's gonna be, I'm glad we're doing it as a pilot, because I think there's gonna probably be some tweaking that needs to happen. Especially seeing where there's a drop off or not on the existing 501, 502, 504. To see how many of those kids that are juniors and seniors, we say it's going to be only juniors and seniors from this neighborhood going to Dublin High, but there will be freshmen and sophomores as well, because if they have an older sibling, if they put in for a waiver, we do know that there will still be some students that are going to Dublin High out of this neighborhood. It's gonna be interesting to me to see what kind of demand we still have for Dublin High. So I'm glad we're calling the pilot so that we can still be nimble and respond to those needs. But at some point, if you put in for a transfer, you have to know that you are outside of the service area, and you may have to carpool, or drive your students to school. So I'm glad that we're not doing the public hearing yet. I'm glad that we're gonna try and see, since there's still quite a few unknowns. So I'm comfortable with what we're proposing.
Then all I'd add with that is, are we limited on time for a pilot program?
6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah.
Cause I was gonna say, so are we gonna have to do a public hearing basically every year?
No, well-
As this increases in service?
We will be updating our Title VI plan next year, and during that update, we will be likely making a recommendation to give ourselves an exemption for any route that operates fewer than 10 trips a day. That is a pretty standard exemption that we see in Title VI plans. That way we don't have to continue to do these public hearings for changing a trip or two on some of our low frequency routes.
Okay, sounds good. And then the other thing that'll probably come up with the general board, we've had, packed school buses. This is gonna be a major change. Not just for Emerald High, but also watching for Dublin High. And, the pilot will be great for us being able to be a little bit more nimble about shifting things around.
Yeah. But also in general, a public hearing is not a bad thing. Giving an opportunity for the public to weigh in on the route, where it's going, and the timing is not a bad thing, so.
I'm all for the public hearing. I was just
Yeah.
thinking that every year, as we got more
And it
students,
would be the case if our,
public hearing each time.
Mhm.
and if we didn't change our public or major service change policy, then yes, that would be the case.
And even if we do publicizing that we're changing the routes, and do you want to comment on it, is not a bad thing.
You can, and we can do that and not just
Right.
have to have a public hearing. Right, absolutely. That's just good thing.
Any further comments or questions, Director Brown? Okay, thank you. So, this was just information only. We will see it again, I'm assuming at the board or not.
We were not planning on taking this to the board. I think we got good feedback here.
Okay.
And now we're reaching out to Emerald High.
All right, perfect. Let's move on then to item number 8, which is our long range tangent plan.
All right, good afternoon, committee members. Today we are joined again by Thomas Whitman from Nelson Nygaard, who will be here to answer any additional questions that we have on our long range plan. Hi, Thomas. So as you will recall, we brought this plan to you last month for your approval, and there were substantial comments, and I just want to acknowledge that this should have been presented as draft and not final last month. So that being said, we heard what the committee's feedback was, and we made, I think, the necessary adjustments to the long range plan. In particular, we are recommending a new microtransit. Oh, no, this isn't, no, sorry, Jennifer, it's not finished. No, sorry, there's no slide deck for you. I was in San Francisco for 4 hours today. There will be a slide, this will be presented on Monday, and mostly it will be the big presentation that you got last month. But I had high hopes to have your presentation today, and I failed miserably. But in summary, we cleaned up some of the typos that were in the document. We added a new microtransit zone in Hacienda in Pleasanton, which I think is the right location for that type of service. We addressed some of the interim service changes that we think should be made as developments occur, including the boulevard. And actually, kudos to Cyrus for having a crystal ball. He has requested bus stops already in the boulevard development, and while we have not received any requests for service yet, we have a route that we would run in there to go to Dublin High. In addition, there's, is it Scarlet Drive that will be connected through? So we have mention of serving Scarlet. And we're paying very close attention to the development in central Dublin and seeing how the Route 4 might change.
Excellent.
And then we have added some clarifying language about the role of Go Tri-Valley. Once microtransit is launched, really, I don't think it's wise to operate both on top of one another. But if we choose to keep Go Tri-Valley, if that's in the interest of the board, then perhaps it's offered, in the hours when our buses are not running. So that really does conclude the summary of changes that we made. Thomas, am I missing anything that you can recall?
Those were the big ones. So yeah, you covered it.
And we get, the last thing I'll mention is we do get our JIPA allocation of hours into the alignment as prescribed in your JIPA. And the last thing I'll say is we just learned that we will have another short range transit plan due to MTC next summer. So there seems to be no end to planning in transit. So we have put funding in your fiscal 25 budget to bring a consultant on board. So that will be our opportunity to do a more cost constrained near term service plan and not only look at how your wheels in motion routes are performing, but perhaps bring forward some of your long range transit plan items earlier.
What's the short range transit plan timeframe? Like what?
I think
What number
it's
of years is
at
it?
3 to 5 years. They're due every 3, I believe, and it's different for a small versus a large operator. But yeah, we are having another one too this next year.
Okay. All right, questions? Yep.
Sound. Thank you, Chair. Thomas, would you just give me sort of a wrap around my head exactly what this is doing for us, long-term transit? Because there's so much in here that things like an I-680 route, who's paying for it, who's going to be providing the transit, Just some things there I don't quite understand. That, and I'll just say for Pleasanton, it identified we have Ace train coming to Pleasanton, and then there's no connection to the BART station from, I don't even know if there's any demand for it. But how are we, what's the general takeaway? Because I don't really see an executive summary here. General takeaway for the purpose of this, and then maybe Christy can help. What is Wheels going to do with this information?
And let me start with what is the general piece. There's been a series of different planning efforts that have, can in the next 10 years have an impact on Wheels's operation. What the I-680, there was a previous study that was done for the I-680 corridor, for instance, to connect Pleasanton to Martinez with a new long regional route. And so this was not in any previous previous plans that that LAFTA has done. So that was like one of the pieces of, okay, what do we do about this? One of the other things that was a big opportunity that was, did not show up in any of the previous planning documents was the Valley Link, services. And, so there's a real, if Valley Link, the next 10 years, comes online, what are both the opportunities that presents for LAFTA, as well as what are some of the things where we can strengthen it, and also what might the facilities need to look like that, that interplay with that. One of the things that we found in working specifically in other California places was that the bus rail interface sometimes is not what it needs to be, because no planning had been done in advance of what that could look like in terms of, do we need shuttle services, or do we need, a kiss and ride, or do we need something there? And so this was meant to try to get ahead of that, so that in so many other places in Southern California, it's like, well, we built the station. Well, where do the buses go? Well, nobody told us to build anything there. So this is really a way to look forward to start the conversation, for instance, with Valley Link, to say, this is the type of facilities we need, and here's how we're going to be looking at doing some of the first last mile services to and from the stations that can help you expand your market share as a result of that as well. So those were it was really the big picture items that we were looking at trying to focus on, of what else should we do, and how do we start planning for that, and what are some of the potential fiscal implications of that. For routes like 680, we did not assume that, because it's a partnership, we did not assume that any additional dollars from LAFTA were going to be used to fund and operate that, because it's a regional service, not your service. You could be operating a part of it, but we did not assume that you're carrying the entire load, because that wouldn't be right. Anyway, hopefully that answered your question, or at least the first part.
Yeah, it does help. So this is all 680 North. And it says it's
Yes.
even going to Fairfield Suisun, which is a good, 60 miles away. And then it would just stay on that. Well, then it's going to go to Pleasant Hill too. Pleasant Hill, so it's going to splinter off and go east or west and east. So that's kind of an interesting complexity. But between the additional bays and the it's great to pick up another 11 to 1,500 riders. So that's a wonderful thing. But it sounds like what you're saying is it's a communication with many agencies, such as Contra Costa, but it goes all the way up to Solano County, right? I mean, this is huge if it ever happens in our lifetime. Okay.
If it happens, and it requires regional partnerships, and it requires, working together with a series of other stakeholders, but the demand for the services has been documented, and now it's a question of, and this is one of the big questions overall of transit in the Bay Area, is we're really good at working within our smaller areas, but how do we, a lot of the travel patterns are a little bit longer, and who's responsible for that? And that, it really starts that conversation, and this is a conversation that I believe you're going to be having over the next 10 years, whether 680 to the north or even longer term of 680 to the south as an opportunity as the managed lanes come online.
Wouldn't that be MTC responsibility to coordinate?
MTC is working on some of that with the regional network management. It's very complicated. The Bay Area does suffer from no true regional system that has the phalanges out in each of the counties. We've got good local service, you've got BART and Muni and Caltrain. And so MTC is pushing for regional network management, which means, it's a mixed blessing, if I'm being honest. We have a responsibility to schedule our routes as they need to be scheduled to do our local transportation. And if we have a regional network manager saying, no, it's more important that you connect with this service for regional trips, there's a trade-off with that. But MTC is very vested in this. There's been some new legislation introduced, SB 1031. We are digesting it right now. It calls for the consolidation of all the agencies. And so I know that's not on our agenda right now, but the regional travel is something that is it's being discussed, and without more money, there is a trade-off. It's either regional or local. You can't have both at the right level of service without more funding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Director Brown, you asked me what I thought Wheels would do with this information, and if you want, I can give you a few thoughts there. So what we lack here is a vision for what our network should look like in 10 years. We don't have a guiding North Star, if you will. We have a short-range plan that was cost constrained, and so I think this is important for many reasons. This is a roadmap. This is not the final. There are stages of how these routes become things. You have your vision, your first study, and then you might refine that in your short range plan, which is your more cost constrained plan. And then you have your major service change policy. So, taking everything through your public hearing and in your public comment. And every year we have to budget for service. So the long range plan doesn't identify who is funding these various things. That will have to be a decision that we make. We will be using this long range plan to go after grants that could potentially fund some of these services. But I just want to be crystal clear that we bind our service in our revenue hours that go to the board each year, and that would be subject to your approval. But this is something that I think we really need. We are going after grants, and we're talking about serving Valley Link, and we don't have a network that shows how we might do that. And the 680 service is actually, we've received over $7 million in grant funding to support infrastructure for that 680 service. So that service is on the radar of our funding partners at the state. We think it's important that we continue to work out those details. That's why you'll see next month, I'm hopeful to bring to you a draft MOU with County Connection. So the 680 service would be jointly operated by the two of us. And it would, we could absorb the 70X line into that 680, because you wouldn't want to run both of them. They're serving the same market. So I'll probably stop there. I said a lot, but I think this is an important document to help us shape our network and go after grant funding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So the 70X, the 70X has always been a challenging one because it kind of deadheads and then it comes back empty. Last question. Pleasanton's ACE station does not connect to BART. That is in this report. Much of it's very long-term, 5-10 years or more, but this is shorter term. And it also refers to the West Dublin Pleasanton BART station for Dublin as well. Is that something on your radar?
We have two routes actually that connect Pleasanton ACE with both East Dublin BART and West Dublin BART. The Route 53 and 54, these are our ACE shuttle routes that ACE helps fund. They are timed to connect with the ACE trains. They will hold for late arriving trains. So they may not be called out specifically in the long range plan. Oh, no, they are. They're on page 4, or excuse me, on page 61. And yeah, those services remain intact. And I will note the 680, the future 680 service has an alignment that actually goes down to the Pleasanton A station. So there's a recognition of the importance of connecting to that node.
And if I might jump in, the 53 and 54, what's the ridership on those now?
It's strong.
Strong.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah, I recall it's strong.
Okay, we should change the report because on page 32, it says it has no existing BART connection to the Pleasanton A station. It's at the bottom of page 32. So I'll just ask for a correction if that's the case. All right, thank you.
Okay. I don't have that in front of me, but does that mean it has no existing rail connection?
No
Is that-
existing BART connection, I'm referring to wheels.
Yeah, it says, you're absolutely right, and I did not catch that. It does say it has no existing BART connection, and that is incorrect. So we will remove that. Thank you for.
Yeah, the West Dublin Pleasanton BART station, no direct ACE. And of course, Valley Link, of course, nobody has a Valley Link connection. Okay.
All right, thank you. Did you have questions?
No, thank you for the updates.
I appreciate the updates as well. Okay, so we need a motion to put my glasses on to find out what the motion needs to be, to endorse and forward this to the entire board. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Only if the corrections are made on page 32. Thank you. With corrections, I'll second the motion.
So the motion is to forward this to the board with corrections.
Yeah,
and we have
and ask for a friendly amendment for the motion that the item in page 32 get modified so that it no longer states there is no BART connection to ACE.
We got it amended.
yes,
I'll second.
that's reflected in the motion. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Director Browning,
Yes.
Director Josie.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, perfect. Humming right along to item number 9, which is a preview of upcoming agenda items.
Well, thank you very much. As just mentioned, we are working on a very simple MOU between LAVTA and County Connection to express our commitment to figuring out how to run the 680 service. So we are working on that. The key deadline for this is having it approved by June. So when we submit our TERSIP application in July, we can show progress with our 680. We are working to get you an on-call task order contract. This is to improve 3 high ridership bus stops, one at East Dublin BART, one at Las Positas College, and one at the lab. And so we have $2 million in grant funding that will be expiring. And so we are excited about making improvements there. And then I am working with staff on a concept for a Youth Thrive Free summer promotion for this year. I was inspired after speaking with some families at the St. Patrick's Festival. I think it would be a great opportunity for youth to try the bus over the summer. So I will be bringing an item to the committee in April. And in May, I am trying to hold items off of your agenda so we can cancel your May meeting because your May meeting falls on Memorial Day. But if I cannot, then we will be polling you to determine the appropriate rescheduled date.
Okay.
And then in June, we've got TAC appointments and some fare structure changes.
Okay. No questions on that, I'm assuming. So we were gonna move right into matters initiated by committee members. No matters here. Okay, our next meeting is on the 22nd of April, and we stand adjourned at 5:09.